get ready. Okay. We're good?
Yes.
We're good? We're good?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, we actually got a time limit.
Yeah, no, we got in trouble for that.
Oh, yeah.
I bet you did.
Apparently we talk too much.
Who sets the time limits?
Me.
Yeah, she did.
The first
And I don't
thing
know
when
if it's because she doesn't want to watch it again. So-
Yeah, because she has to sift through it all and listen to it.
And Chris, when I came back, Carly goes, all Chris done was advertise the whiskey.
Excuse me,
I
I
tried
brought
to reach
some
out
very
to them.
good
No,
points.
I tried to reach out to them, but they don't have a handle or an email or anything.
Well, have you introduced this one?
I did a very lame one, which...
Okay, can you introduce the whiskey?
Yeah. Yep.
Introduce the whiskey. Hi, I'm Chris Leal from Kickerman.
No, I'm not from Kickerman.
No?
No, this is from Kickerman, but I'm not from Kickerman.
Yeah, but that's where you got to tell them. We're trying to get sponsorship.
Yeah, we're trying to gaslight.
Because they want me? Well, I'm in their colour.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
All right. And then you can pour it up.
So, I more and more want it either way. Do we say today? This is brought to you by
Yeah.
Gilkerman.
Yeah, so we can go to that. We can flick to that.
Oh, yeah, recording.
Go on, start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Okay. What's a good name for a podcast?
Really?
I don't know.
We
I didn't do it, Dad.
I do think that's very
Let's-
actually.
we think
smart
alike. Let's hope we don't look alike.
We're not that far off.
Okay. Well, I've got to get all of this right, otherwise I screw this up. So, Pilcher, is that
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
correct? I'm not going to stuff up pronunciation
That is correct.
or anything like that. And Chris,
Christ.
Christ, is that okay?
Sure.
And the humble Indian.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that might stick.
Actually, you have to do a full spiel because
No.
yeah.
Why?
No, you have to because he wasn't on the first one.
No.
Oh.
No. You're basically the host.
No.
Are you ready?
No.
Good. All right. G'day, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of Distilled Insights, which is the revamped version of our old podcast, which was called Scotch O'Clock. And as you can then now tell, that we obviously have a drinking problem and enjoy whiskey far too much. Today we're going to talk about culture, people, HR, performance, and everything that surrounds the team and the people within our businesses. And we've got Manny, who is the Bhudia of Alderton Bhudia here for the first time. He'll be appearing regularly on this podcast, despite what he wants me to say. And we've got Faith Pilcher, who is from Sharp & Carter and is in recruitment and is the one that needs to make sure that the right people go to the right places and fit with exactly what we want, not only from a performance and job role and all that, but also culturally. So,
what is that? You tell me where to be.
As in here.
Yeah. So my tardiness was on you.
Well, you know, I think it's on Frank.
Okay.
No, it's the,
I feel like that also, behind closed doors, I'll blame Manny.
Yeah, I'll wait for that.
But yeah, and then, so Chris, you were here, so we don't need to do any intro for you, but do you want to,
Take it away.
do you want to introduce
I believe
the
I've been
whiskey?
saddled with the whiskey announcements based upon my previous decades. So without further ado, I'm not going to do a lame Scottish accent because I'd absolutely butcher it, but it's the drink for the distinguished gentleman.
Well, there's none of them here.
it actually did look like he's rehearsed that.
Yeah, no.
Can I have your other glasses, please, gentlemen?
And nothing for
I
Faith?
wish I could try it, but
Nothing-
again,
nothing
I'm
for
just
Faith,
not, I'm
'cause-
just,
You're not a drinker.
I tried, but it just feels like it burns the, yeah.
Yeah, it certainly does. Okay, well, welcome everybody.
I believe
Okay,
it's still distilled.
correct.
It is.
Yeah.
So it
Well, that's got a bit of
Oh, wow.
it's got a bit of peat to it. That's
Yeah.
straight from the Islay,
No, it's.
It's
I've got to
different.
butcher this again. Mature Bay.
which is part of the Islay. Anyway, no, look, I know you're the spokesman, so
Yeah.
I won't step in your area.
Yeah,
I'll
exactly.
stay in my lane,
Yeah.
as it were.
Jesus. Just running an accounting firm, all right?
Thank you. Well, look, okay, so this is a pretty big topic actually, I think, because if you really think about the last 5 years in particular, like, this landscape has changed dramatically, I think, in my opinion anyway, because between this move to hybrid, this people pulling back from hybrid, people going completely online, the remote workforce and that's impact, the change in, I suppose, culture with respect to performance and respect to how to keep people happy and how to make sure this is the right place that people want to work and how to find people that fit with that. This is a podcast that could go on for a long time. But I think, you know, because we've been given a very strict time limit by Cavia, we should limit to a few different things that I think are important. And so maybe we'll stick a little bit to professional services because there's a lot of things that that are relevant there. And of course, Faith, that's where you spend most of your time
Yeah.
looking for staff now. But perhaps let's start with the hybrid, the work from home environment, and from your side. Well, I guess my question would be, like, how much are people asking for when you're meeting new people and trying to find places for them? Does just everybody ask, how much can I work from home now, or is it changing, or what is the feeling out there of candidates?
I think I would say 90% of people want the flexibility. Not necessarily working from home, but flexibility is it's asked 24/7. Like every candidate I speak to asks about flexibility. I think obviously from after COVID there was a huge shift. Everyone was obviously remote. But I think a lot of people are actually stepping away from the working from home now. So
Is that forced or because they prefer to be back in the office now that they've experienced it?
I think it's mainly, I would say, the firms are wanting the staff in the office more. I would say the staff are still wanting the working from home flexibility. It's a tough one because I think some people work really well from home, some people don't. Like, people obviously try and make a blanket rule, but again, everyone's different. But it is definitely, flexibility is something that people really, really value.
Yeah.
Even if it's, flexible working hours, you have 8:30 to 5, but you can do 7 to 4 or, things like that, but flexibility is huge.
Would you say more like the timing is more crucial rather than the working from home element these days?
Yeah, I would actually say more people kind of appreciate, especially people that have kids, they can either do the drop off or the pick home. But definitely the flexible working arrangements in terms of start, finish times and working from home, I would get asked that all day, every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, I think that is important. Flexibility obviously is important. I mean, there's plenty of people here do it, and you're right in saying that people are all different. I mean, some people, I would argue, should be at home all the time because they're productive and they don't really do it. But I guess it also depends on the firm's values, the firm's culture, because if you're a firm, and this is not necessarily just professional services, but I feel like if you're a business that is professional and that can get the same job done with people from home, and you don't want to grow, you don't want to find specific people to kind of push you in directions, then they can be separated. But the damage that can do to culture, right, because no one is really working together properly, is a big risk.
Yeah.
But also, I think that giving people the options, and more so making them understand, because I think it's become an expectation rather than a perk, right?
Yeah.
And I think that post-COVID, it was like, oh well, we can work whenever we want, how we want, the time we want, as long as we do our job, and that's fine. I think there's a lot of truth to that, but I think also that can be very damaging in general because...
Well, it definitely proved that it worked in theory.
Yeah.
But then the cracks clearly started to appear.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In how an organisation can bridge certain issues. Obviously, the biggest one is how do we get that extra collaboration to make sure that we come up with new ideas instead of just going through and doing the workflow rote by rote. Yeah, I did my job. I ticked the box.
Yeah.
But the organisation is not creating anything new. It's not invigorating itself. It's not getting that buzz that you get from people feeding off each other's ideas. I think that's where I saw, and I think looking at my investor cap on, what I was hearing from a lot of big organisations, that they were struggling to get those new ideas through.
I guess my question on that is, so on the culture side of things, does that not impact the culture with the whole work from home
Absolutely.
and all of that? Because you're not getting that team-ism.
Exactly.
And they're not coming together and they're not gaining experience from someone else, and the cross-collaboration, like you said, all of that's missing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what, obviously I speak to a lot of accounting firm partners and directors, day in and day out. And I think the main thing is when you're working from home, especially at like a grad level, I'm not sure about you guys, but you learn the most from your mentors and from seeing how your leaders work and listening to them speak and how they interact and like what their habits are. That's how you set yourself up in those first few years of working.
Yeah.
When you don't have that, you're kind of missing out, and you don't develop those good habits. You're kind of just doing your job. You're not learning by interacting, and then it does affect culture because you don't really learn how to work as a team.
Yeah.
So.
And it breeds inefficiency, and I think that one of the biggest and sort of Well, there's a couple of things here. Like, first of all, I think one of the biggest problems is people have failed to realise that if you're going to work from home, right, and enjoy that perk or that benefit that you get from wherever you are, right, the fact that you lack that transfer of knowledge from just being in the office. So it might not even be a job that you're working on, but you'll hear other people talking about it, or you'll by association will see the directors or partners talking about something, or the managers talking about something, and you will be like, oh, what does that mean? You go and ask a question and do that. You lose all that, right? So the onus actually shifts to your development, right? Especially as a grad, but as anyone, right? Your development requirement shifts from your managers that will try to bring you up to you having to make the effort to connect in.
Yeah.
Right. And so people that are taking this benefit, this perk, and working from home, and thinking that no, well, it's up to them to bring me, or it's up to someone else to try and get me up to speed and train me and do all of this sort of stuff. When actually, when you're at home, it's your responsibility, in my view, to then actively try and connect in and make sure you're getting the most out of the firm. Because when you're in the office, the managers will make sure everything happens.
Yeah.
Right? They can talk to you, see you, do all that sort of stuff. But when you're at home and you've lost that, then the onus shifts to you. You got to connect in. You got to talk to people. You got to speak. You got to comment. You got to do everything that you can to try and ask questions. And then, of course, you get the inefficiencies of, well, I'll send a message to someone.
But I think that's where the animosity will lie, because you're putting your owner, partner hat on, and you're saying, well, if you want that, then that privilege, that's fine. But it's the onus on you. They're going to probably argue, you need to do more. And so there's that natural friction that happens there where it's like, why are we even creating a friction point that's just going to damage the culture?
So on the flip side of that, what if most people are in the office and you choose to be at home? So let's say 90% are in the office and you're picking to be at home, therefore you're stopping yourself from learning office.
Once again, I agree with that. I was referring to when everyone had to work from home effectively. We had that issue. Now, obviously, now we've moved on and passed from that. So yeah, it does. And I suppose what I'd be asking you about and what your insights are into this is, how would you implement those perks in such a way that you could go, this person deserves the flexibility, this one hasn't shown the diligence or the capability yet. Implementing a policy like that across an organisation would be quite challenging, I imagine.
Yeah, I think you can do it in a number of different ways, and similarly to, I suppose, what you guys are doing at the moment. Like if people, let's say, you work to KPIs. If people are meeting those and they're performing in their role, and you've got different measurables that you can track their performance and they are performing, then it's kind of like, that's on the flip side though, you can you don't want staff to feel like they have to earn your trust. That's the other thing about working from home and that whole flexibility, because obviously when COVID happened, it was pretty evident that some jobs you can do at home. You just can't. Like, that's just the reality of it. But that's just simply doing the job. It's not, there's so much else to work than just ticking the boxes that you should be doing. But
clearly we're not talking about the government here then.
No.
No.
That's a throw bomb in there somewhere.
But yeah, I suppose what you say, if it is seen as a reward, it needs to be obviously fair to everyone. There can't be allowances for some people, and there has to be like a blanket rule. If you meet this criteria and you're doing well, you can work from home. On the flip side, employees, they do want to feel valued, and if you've employed someone, you should trust them already. So you don't want them to feel like, well, they don't trust me to work from home. So they're feeling like they have to earn your trust, because sometimes that can be problematic as well.
And look, we're definitely venturing into another conversation, I think, about this whole trust and belief and all of that, because it's one of those things where, as a partner or a director of any business, that's right, you can only work with the results, right? And the knowledge of understanding that it can happen from home, right, is fine. But when you have a culture as a firm, and again, this comes back to what different firms are trying to achieve, right? When we're a firm that is trying to grow quickly, right, and trying to build like the foundation team of managers and partners and and processes and things like that, to move forward quickly requires a certain type of people and a certain type of team. And we don't want people that don't fit with that, because it doesn't suit them or us. It's not they're not good enough for us. It's not that. It's like if you don't want to do this, then we don't want you, and then you shouldn't be here. That's fine.
Is that what you say in the job interviews? Is it?
Yeah. Well, absolutely.
No, it's true. Yeah.
I do actually say. That's why. That's why. Yeah, backfire. But it's hard to find. obviously, because, and this is why the process of HR, I mean, we've looked into this sort of stuff before, is how do we improve our processes in terms of how we find people, how we interview people, how we talk to people, how we place people, to make sure that we find the right people. And it's very difficult.
It is.
Because it's a very dynamic environment.
Can I just push back on something? I mean, you talk about trust almost instantaneously. I would argue a lot of people don't just go into any new relationship, let's call it that way for lack of a better term, with just trust. Everyone has an element of feeling the other out, of getting to know them, the first impressions. I think it's the same for any business as well. I mean, yes, you're wanting to bring on the best candidate, but you're only ever going to see the best of them in a job interview. You don't see the quirks, the foibles and all the rest of it until you've spent some time with them. And some of those may just be deal breakers. So to implicitly trust them without giving them some leeway to grow into the role.
But this is why I say, what do we do? I mean, when you look at some other things that we've looked at before, I mean, you look at Tesla, now let's not look at because Elon's a bit, right? But
don't speak ill of one.
Yeah, where's the chainsaw? But like, they got a 10-step recruitment process, right? Especially when they're hiring for important positions, right? And so like, that's obviously, well, I think it's over the top for what we're trying to do. But throughout a 10-step process, right, whatever that take is going to be tests and personality tests and skill tests and, you know, culture and, you know, introducing them to people and doing all that. So you get down a pathway of going, well, okay, I now have more clarity than I could ever get out of a recruitment process to understand that I've made the right call. We can't really do that now. A 1 or 2 stage interview, you can ask questions, you can do this, but all you really got to go off is a feel. Right, and an understanding of the skill. Right? That's it.
You probably could set up a system that could go down that line, whether you want to. I suppose the argument always comes down to, what are you offering that surpasses any of your competition?
And that's what I was going to actually add. In this market, you don't have the luxury of doing a 10-step interview because you've got a good candidate, they'll get a job the next day.
That's exactly why we can't do it.
So that's just, you're kind of at the mercy of the market. Like, you can't, you know, even a week is too long in this market. So it makes it really, really hard, you know, that's why there's obviously a lot of pressure on finding the right person. You've got to have that gut feeling in that first meeting. And it is hard to know if you trust them, but I think, like you said, you don't go into any relationship with blind trust, but sometimes you just kind of have to, because it builds. Then, you know, they know that they're valued. They don't want to break your trust if they've got your trust. If they don't have your trust, then it's kind of like.
So then in this instance, then you're talking specifically in this market. You've got to be that way. If it was tougher, those rules don't apply.
No, I think you need to trust the employees that you're you know, bringing in, and I suppose unless they break that trust, then it's different. But you don't kind of want to build this relationship from the beginning, or at the beginning. Obviously, they need to work hard. I'm not talking about work ethic and you know, putting in the maximum effort and performing really well. That's different to trust. But I suppose off the back of working from home and all of that kind of thing, you know, the flip side of it not being a reward and it's an expectation, I suppose you kind of have to just trust your staff so they don't feel like it's, you know, a reward sometimes, because then does that mean that they're going to treat it like...
So it's not treat them name, treat them team?
No. I know.
Your whole philosophy's gone.
Unfortunately.
I'm officially a dinosaur.
I know.
I know. In theory and in looks.
Yeah.
Let's edit that.
That's cut, Chris.
That's her. Sorry, Chris. No, you're a valuable asset to this firm.
Oh, you can see that. You can see the issues.
Anyway, back to the whiskey.
Back to the whiskey. Kilkerman.
Kilkerman, the old dinosaur.
I guess on culture then, does it make a big difference, work from home versus dynamics in the team and the way you work with your people and your partners and so on?
I think so.
Because in my head, you could sometimes it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
Because when you do the work from home, you're not going to get one to a certain degree and vice versa. So are people now that they know most firms or companies are bringing work from home, I guess only 1 or 2 days a week, are they now exploring what they can get in a workplace?
Do you know what? I think most people are pretty happy with 1 or 2 days a week, to be honest. And I think that's actually enough for most people. Which, you know, that's reasonable. Who wants to be at home all the time anyway? Like, you don't have a job to be on your own.
Yeah.
But I think, it's it definitely does affect culture when not everyone's in it. It affects like the whole synergy of the team. Like people don't get used to working together. Yeah, it is. I think 1 or 2 days a week is really good, but also you kind of want people, anyone that you're bringing on, you want them to be on the same page as you. So if you guys have this view of, you know, working from home and everything, you want whoever you bring on, you want them to be on that. You don't want to bring on someone that likes to work from home 5 days a week.
No, well, because the thing is,
Unless they're a savant. Sorry, I was not putting myself in that. Well, maybe I was. Maybe I was.
You're going on. It takes a little while.
Yeah.
This is what we call an acquired taste.
Yeah, that's good though.
Much like
And that's
You
terrible.
need one. Yeah.
I actually find this is really quite interesting conversation. It's culture, but the whole conversation's being dominated about whether people are working from home or not, and nothing else.
I know.
Yeah.
Which obviously has become such a big issue.
It is.
Yeah.
From this
Because
COVID era.
I think it affects everything, right?
It does.
Of course it does. And, you know, to your point about people that want to work from home all the time, yeah, absolutely.
But then again, there's more. There's like once you get them into your office, culture just doesn't go. You guys figure it out. There's
But,
more.
I mean, personally, I see that as time goes on and there's more generations come, we're getting worse at being social and worse at dealing with people and worse at everything as time goes on. And so bringing people back together to try and stop that, you know, is important. Right? I mean, I think anyway, because everyone all of a sudden, like most of the people that worked from home for a while loved it, right? Loved it, right? And then came back to the office and they're like, oh, now I realise why I like this too.
Exactly.
Right? And so having a mix of both absolutely is great. Like no one wants to be at home all the time and no one wants to be at work all the time. Right? But if you can have a nice combination of both, that's fine. But also, like, it's, again, the expectation versus perk, I think, is an important thing because, you know, the reason that you get to do it is because you've already built that trust.
Yeah.
And you've already shown that you can, you know, do and that you're being part of the team.
Yeah.
Which also leads into this recruitment process of, well, if you find the right people, then yes, we don't have to have really strict policies and strict procedures and strict everything because the trust already exists.
Yeah.
Right? If you've got all of that and everyone's doing the right thing, then you don't have to have rules where you only get it if you do this or you only get it if you do that, right? If you just had people that were prepared to say, right, for my 40 hours or 38 hours a week, this is my job, I'll do it fucking well, right? And then you're going to get everything. We don't have to get you to have a policy that says we'll check on you, right? You can have it, but it's not happened that way.
No.
It's just that the performance has deteriorated with this increase of casual behaviour around how we work and how we operate. Right? And so that casual approach to everything, because work from home, casual attire, like the flexible hours, was like everything is on the employee's terms. Right? And that might not necessarily be true, but it was certainly the feeling that came off the back of COVID. Right? Where it was like, I'm in charge of my day, I'm in charge of what I do, I'm in charge of how fast I do it, how slow I do it. And as long as I tick these 5 boxes, right, then I'm good with my boss, right? That's the deal, right? And I think that's okay for certain roles. It's certainly not okay with businesses that want to grow and that then require people to help drive each other up and build a team and build a culture that is performance-based. So we're talking about work from home, but in terms of the culture thing, it's like performance is part of culture, right? Culture is not just we're going to have a good time and relax and we get to work from home.
No, get pizza day on Friday.
No, that's not just it. Oh, good. There's a pool table in the office. That's culture. No, culture is like, okay, we can have all that, right? But outside of that, we're going to work our fucking asses off, right? Because we want to stay here for a long time and we know this business needs to grow, right? And so not only the partners or directors are like, we demand this of you. It's like, well, if I do the right thing, we'll do the right thing. You're going to get access to everything, and everyone is going to enjoy their life, you know, business and personal.
I mean, once again, agree with you. You sound a little utopias there, but that's okay. Didn't pick you for like a commie or a socialist.
Let's talk about you.
No, please don't. I did have a train of thought here.
It's gone now, yeah.
No, you didn't. No, I was going to say, because obviously having a performance-based business that wants to grow, what are your takes on how to invoke that culture where it's like the team supports the vision? How do you incentivize that? Or what would you recommend in how to incentivize that in order to get, you know, almost like the bottom feeding through to the top?
Well, I mean, I've got it. You go, then I'll tell you mine.
Well, my thing...
Well, clearly hasn't worked for you, so that's why I'm asking.
I'll take this outside.
Might have to cut
to release manager. He might look like a humble Indian, but he will go crazy.
He loves me.
I think, you can tell.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
It's kind of similar to what you guys were saying. I would say if you don't structure your business kind of around the culture you want, the culture will be made for you by the staff, and it won't necessarily be the culture that you want. So it's kind of like, I think business owners have to be very clear on the type of workplace that they want and what kind of values and they want to adhere to for the whole business, and make all their decisions based around that, all their policies based around that. Like I know, I can speak from Sharp and Carter's perspective. They've got very, very, they've got core values that all of their decisions are based around. So it's kind of like, all the policies are based around those core values. So, work from home and high performance, like if that's one of your values, then, and you prefer everyone in the office, then that's going to kind of drive that high performance, mentality into the team, because that's just the culture you're creating. So you kind of have to structure your policies, your, everything around what culture you want. Otherwise, employees will make the culture for you, similar to maybe what it was like before. And it's not the one that you wanted.
So if you do have a staff member which then becomes, let's say, disruptive, what's the outcome? Do you try and change that person in order to fit the culture, or do you part ways and say, look, this place isn't for you?
I would say part ways.
Yeah, because in my head, like I probably even say, it's hard to change someone's dynamic, the way their personality, the way they are,
without significant investment in it.
And it could.
And that's too much for any organisation really to invest.
And then even that changing that's still not their baseline. They're actively working to change that. So that's not going to be sustainable. If some people sometimes they just don't fit.
Probably it's not fair on them either. Because they'll be miserable and they won't be happy coming to work, and vice versa. They won't be achieving what they need to achieve from the company's point of view.
But also, there is moving into a market for a product or retail, or getting something, you're buying in on something, right? And it goes like, well, you've got the early adopters, which are the people where, if Manny or I say, in this firm, for example, we're going to do this, there'll be a certain percentage of people that say, we're in, no questions asked. You got full trust in us, right? We'll just do it, right? And then you'll have like the early adopters, right? Which will be like, we'll ask a couple of questions and we'll get in, right? And then you'll have the early majority, which are like, well, if we've seen other people do it, then maybe we'll jump in, right? And this is all the standard deviation curve, right? And so, but the rules of this the law of diffusion of innovation is that if you get 15 to 18%, supposedly, I don't know this properly, but 15 to 18% supposedly, then the people will follow, because that's 2 and a bit standard deviations from what you want, right? And so when you think about a number of people, it's like some people will come to the party, some people never will, like you're saying, they just don't fit, right? And then you should part ways, right? But some people just need a little bit more push and go, well, they need to understand why it's going to benefit them. Why is this going to make my life better? Why will I enjoy work more? And why should I actually spend the time to do this? And then ultimately they will. But certainly there's people that are just never going to come on board. And but it's better. This is why people always talk about if you're removing somebody or somebody resigns, like that's such a terrible thing. It's like, no, even if you remove somebody, it's generally because it's not a fit for both. Like it's got nothing to do with like, oh, this person is terrible. Like that's most of the time that's not the case, if ever at all. Like very rarely it's because they're a bad person. Otherwise you wouldn't have hired them at all.
Exactly.
Right. But most of the time it's like either the firm's moved or they've moved. Right, and they're in different directions, right, and no longer do you belong in this place because it's not where you want to be and it's not what we want.
So in a tough market like we are at the moment, what is a business supposed to do when you've got that kind of person? You've got that one person in the organisation, they're disruptive, they're bringing the mood down, the culture's suffering, but you're really struggling without that person fulfilling the work. Do you pull the trigger and get rid of them, and where the consequences of you're just going to have to lump it until you find another person, or do you put up to them?
Well, and I think we're in a and Randy, you can comment on this as well, but I think we're in a time now where we have the ability to take an extra step, probably to where we did in the past. Right, in the past, where it was 100% of people in the office all the time and nothing, where when you had a bad person, they affected everyone no matter what. Right, now we have an ability to say, well, I can see, the type of work you want to do. So maybe that type of person belongs 100% at home, right? And maybe they'll just build really well in terms of us. Maybe they'll build really well, but it also doesn't serve our purpose of trying to grow the firm. But maybe they belong, in an environment that.
But aren't you then creating a perverse incentive there?
Exactly what I'm getting to, right? So there is ways that you can make it work right? But ultimately, I think that it shouldn't be that. Like, it should be that works for firms that have like either lesser ambition or less intent of doing anything. They just want to get the job done and then go the next day.
And I wouldn't call it an incentive exactly, because look, they miss out on a hell of a lot. They miss what, let's say you are forced to a demographic like you said, working from home, you lose the whole social element, you lose the ability to talk to anyone. You're kind of in your own bubble to a certain degree, probably stuck in your own ways, so therefore you don't end up learning anything, branch out, or talk to anyone.
Once again, I humbly agree with you. I just think that might not be conveyed to the rest of the team in that scenario. It might be seen as why they're getting a benefit for that behaviour.
But this leads me on to another point, right? Which I think is a really important factor in not only just now in 2025, but in recent years, where the requirement of a business to be transparent about everything with their team, right, from the bottom to the top. And whilst that sounds terrible, but from the people who are either graduates or not involved in any kind of management or leadership role at all, right? They still get upset when they don't know what's going on, right? And so our requirement to explain the decisions that we make, whether it's about team or whether it's about strategy or whether it's about process or software or something, we have to articulate everything like so clearly with everybody now. Otherwise, we're seen to be either dishonest or profit driven or just
God forbid, profit driven.
Yeah, I know. Profit's so horrible. Like, how could we ever put all of this risk on the line for some benefit? That just doesn't make no sense.
I just think,
but do you get what I mean? Like we have to all the time. Like we shouldn't have to explain like a decision, like we're changing this process, and like call everyone into an update and say this is what we're doing and why.
I think that's number one for a lot of people, whether they're whichever paradigm they sit in. If they feel they're included, then they're more receptive to any changes for culture, and all of that side of it all plays a part in this.
But also, we're happy to include. I mean, this is why we do our staff retreat every year. This is why we do this type of thing, because we're not the coalface anymore, and understand like the 70% of what happens are for everyone else doing the grunt work, right? So we can make a decision on a process that affects them, but if we're not involved in that process, our decision might be crap, right? And so yes, we want people to be included and all that sort of stuff, and we want to be transparent and get feedback. But ultimately, like the expectation of when we don't do that, right, that it's a bad thing, or it seems to be far more common than it has been in the past.
I would say as you grow though, that won't be such an issue, because obviously when things are directly impacting the staff, like whether it's systems they're using or whatever you're changing, if it affects their day to day, obviously they're going to want to be in the know of what's going on. But I would say as you grow, that expectation of people not that you having to explain everything, that would kind of go, because
Are you referring to like a business which obviously has multiple digital staff in between the grown over and say versus a smaller business which
it's an open book here. Right? Like if people ask questions about why we're doing what we're doing, we just tell them. I don't actually care. Like I actually like the fact that people are involved in everything. I think that's a benefit to everybody. Not just us, but to everybody.
But does it take time away from you? That could be more efficiently spent.
Well, I would certainly say that we've had to structure it in a particular way.
Right.
So now, to make sure that we're covering off on those bases along with everything else, every month we do an hour presentation and allow feedback and all that sort of stuff. So these are all the things that we're doing now. These are the changes to policy. These are the changes to structure. These are the changes to this. These are the problems we've had. These are this, and everyone is given the opportunity to contribute to what they think is going to be the best outcome or what we should do to do it. Which is an expectation. However, no one ever gives any feedback.
Well, that's what I was
and this is why there's a weird thing for me, and like at a partner level, it's like you're demanding me, or us, to saying this is why we do what we do, right? And we're happy to include everybody because again, they have probably better opinions than we do on the majority of things that affect operations, right? But they never give any feedback. Why?
Do you think? I mean, ultimately, you are their boss as well. So maybe they feel like, there could be multiple reasons. Maybe they just agree with you and they're like, this is great. I've got
we've never done it. We've never made a mistake.
No.
No, we can't say that. That's not publicly.
You might get a new title like Elon.
Right, hang on.
It was And the other thing is people probably don't like, a lot of people don't like speaking in group settings sometimes. I can guarantee if you went and asked people, what do you think of this, they would have something to say about it.
Yeah.
But
On a
probably
one-on-one basis, rather than an open forum.
but I think it ultimately, comes back to staff feeling like wanting to feel valued. So them having, being in the know of what's going on, having, opinions and, them feeling like you guys are obviously considering them and the decisions you're making makes them feel valued. That's probably what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, again, so going back to your point earlier before, Chris, about what culture actually is, right? As opposed to just being work from home.
That's
and
all it is.
and
It's just work
and
from
the
home.
trivial stuff. It's like the values that you spoke about, Faith, are important. Like, why do we do what we do? Why are we here? How do we base our decisions? How do we choose everything, right? And everything is based off those values. I mean, we've done multiple years of retreats now, and retreats designed the values that we did, which was voted and done by everything. So everything we do is based on those values, right? Which, exactly, which is excellent. But at the same time, like, we need, like, as any partner or director, we need the feedback. We need everyone to help contribute to the improvement of the firm, which is why we run the retreat, why we do everything. Because they are valued. Like, we're not stupid to think that we're the only ones that can make good decisions. Like, that's not... Anyone that thinks that they're in a firm these days where it's just like, you do what I tell you to do, and that's it. It's not reality. Like, that doesn't achieve things. Like, there's certain things that people don't know, fine, right? But again, everyone needs to contribute. Otherwise, the firm's not going to be successful. No. It just won't work.
So what's the most innovative cultural element that you've seen recently implemented within a business?
You researched.
Do you want me to sit there?
Welcome to Distilled Insights, hosted by Chris.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, he was an hour late, but he's still hosting.
I do know that meme. No, I suppose you're just reversing what I said to you, so that's fine.
Am I?
Well, yeah, you said I don't look that young. I can help you with your skin.
Sorry, I thought you were answering my question.
No, the most innovative thing I've seen, to be honest, I haven't really seen anything innovative.
Okay.
In terms of
Well,
culture.
you're starting a good conversation now, because you're going to have to answer what would be innovative in your opinion.
Yeah, because it's like everything
That's a big
today
question.
at the moment is all about what can we disrupt?
Yeah.
What can we change? What can we upend in order to make what we do stand out in comparison to the competition? And once again, some things will fit, some things won't. It depends on what your business is. I always look at any business whenever I look to invest, and I go, what are they doing that makes me stand up and go, that's incredible?
And that includes technology, obviously.
Well, technology is
culture.
heavy at the moment.
It includes how handsome are the
Not
partner.
the barrel, but you're scraping the bottom.
How handsome are the partner.
Leave the humble Indian.
Yeah, sorry. No, you're right. You're right.
I'm really trying to think.
What would make you go, holy
That
crap,
is an awesome
I want
place.
to work there?
Like, if we gave you 10 candidates and
Gin
you
and
said
tonic.
10 to go to that firm, what would it be?
It's actually a really hard question, and obviously this is, now I'm thinking of it personally, because everyone wants different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's really hard. Like, some people really, really love flexibility. Some people, want a bonus structure. Some people want social things.
We don't pay you.
They're just volunteering.
The culture is your money. The love of it. Like, you can have a great time.
Yeah.
Great time.
Might be why we're struggling with it.
Yeah.
Please don't leave caveat.
Pool table though.
Full table is there?
Yeah.
I would say everyone wants something different, but again, if you're asking me, probably the most innovative thing that I've seen is probably actually my current company, Sharp and Carter. They do, obviously, in recruitment, it's similar to accounting in the sense that, I said this to you guys before, the relationships with the accountant or the recruiter. People that are really good at recruitment and have been doing it for years and they've got their client base can leave, and essentially, all the commission they make is just their income, rather than obviously you get a percentage. So they have like an equity model now where every kind of, I suppose, industry, let's say, can be their own business unit.
Okay.
So you kind of
I understand.
can have equity, in the business as well. So, and that's a great way to keep good people, because they essentially can have the same type of earning capacity as going.
We've talked about this many times, but I was going to say, you're speaking to another thing where people, that it's not necessarily just leaders that want skin in the game, right? And I think that there's a really good conversation to have around, right? It's not just partners that need to have equity. It's not just this. There's mechanisms that exist right, that allow businesses of all types to allow team members at all levels to get access to some upside when the business is going really well, particularly when they've contributed, right? And so things like an ESOP or some kind of share scheme or something is a really, really good conversation.
Big thing within the American markets, especially the tech world.
Well, but it's a massive startup thing, and particularly in Australia as well, because there's a lot of startup concessions that exist within that environment where you can defer taxing points and you can do all kinds of things right under that kind of thing, right? But from a culture standpoint, right, it's a really nice way to say, hey, like, you've been here for X amount of time, clearly, committed to helping us grow, so you can get options or shares or something that will potentially be great for you in a few years' time. So it kind of helps with, getting people to stay longer.
Yeah.
Helps people feel like, and helps people do a lot of different things.
My husband, actually, his company, they can buy shares and people can buy shares in the company and they don't have to be a leader. You kind of get offered it, but you don't have to be a manager.
I would say that's pretty innovative.
Yeah. So, okay, well, there you go. So then...
to have just, like, anybody.
Well, no, you have to get offered. Like, they have to say, do you want to buy shares? Obviously, you have to be a high
Okay, because I was thinking...
Can't be anyone.
Yeah, I was thinking, okay, I
think
don't know how it works.
You've got a lot of ASIC requirements you've got to deal with
Because
here
I've
and all
actually
kinds of
said...
stuff, right, that prevent you from being that free.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't know that as an investor.
No.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No. You've never
Can easily be done through a lot of...
Can easily be done, but with 2 years of paperwork and planning.
Bureaucracy, we love it.
No, but he said that...
I didn't. I thought she was just laughing at me.
I'm purposely not
Did
looking.
you see? So we've been told to wrap it up, right, in those terms. So wrap it up is what it looks like on the phone, right? And I'm not sure if
I
this
thought I was the dad.
I'm not sure if this is because the content's been terrible or Carvy's just going, go on my holiday to Europe.
No, it's at 60 minutes.
It's at 60
Really?
minutes.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
all right.
I was having such a good time.
Well, maybe Manny can just give us a summary of everything and just talk about,
I can't do
just give us a summary, the most important points,
takeaway.
takeaways and all that sort of stuff.
Go for it.
Go for it, Manny.
What are you taking? Are you taking that away?
I'm pretty much taking that away.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you want to do it? Do you want to do the show?
All yours.
All right.
Can't
Right.
do it. No,
And-
Chris.
And
Kilkerman.
I knew I could see it in his eyes. You could see it in his eyes. I knew it was coming.
Love you.
We'll have a chat afterwards.
Well, that's it is Pants Off Friday. Wait, no, it's Monday.
It's Monday.
Don't tell the
That's
audience
not-
that.
I know.
We're
Thanks
alcoholic.
for
Okay.
my underwear.
Culture.
What?
Don't talk about
What
that.
underwear?
Thanks everybody for joining us for another episode, and I hope you learned something. But if you learned nothing, bad luck. See you next time.